I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years, and there's one main mistake I see most people make that sets themselves up for failure. My qualifications are I'm a retired elite gymnast and I've been a trainer for 13 years. Here's what I looked like when I was a gymnast. Here's what I look like with my shirt off. Now that we have that out of the way, I may not be a roided out bodybuilder, but I do have some authority in this industry. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize there's a lot of bad information that I think I can help clear up. The main mistake I see people make comes down to their training plan. I'm going to give two different examples. On this end of the spectrum is somebody who has no idea what they're doing. They don't do any research. They just kind of show up to the gym, do exercises they see other people do, or maybe, you know, when they're younger, their dad, their uncle, their older brother showed them how to do a few exercises. Not very well, but that's all they know to do, so that's what they do. This person, for obvious reason, is not going to get the best results. Then we have the person on the other end of the spectrum who hyper optimizes their training plan. They're really into the science-based lifting community, and they need stats, they need studies behind everything they do, and they hyper optimize. Now, that might sound a little bit confusing. Isn't this what you probably should do? Shouldn't you try to optimize as much as possible? Let me explain what the spectrum they're on is. This is the spectrum of people who've never been an elite athlete. These are people who've never been at the top of a physical discipline. Okay, this is why my perspective is different than most people, because I've been at the top of a physical discipline. My discipline was artistic gymnastics. And when you reach the top, it's like being on the top of a mountain and you're looking down and you see a bunch of people trying to climb up to the mountain to where you're at. The unfortunate reality is 99% of people will never make it to the top. And so you look down and you see these people that don't know how to climb a mountain, so they just never get very high. You look at people that make these grand plans, great in theory, but it's made by a lot of people who've never actually been to the top. We have people that make it halfway up the mountain who do all of these studies, and then they tell people this is how you get to the top. Meanwhile, the people at the top go, cool, but that's not what I did to get to the top of the mountain. Hyper-optimizing is very problematic. What happens is the more you think you're optimizing, really what you're optimizing is your expectations. You think, okay, I should be getting more out of each workout because I look at all these studies, I'm watching all these videos, and I'm applying it to my workout. But what happens is when you start expanding your expectations, it rips like a rubber band when you don't see what you want to see in a certain period of time. Let me tell you, every single time frame that you give yourself is arbitrary. Again, the difference between someone who's never been at the top of the mountain versus someone who is at the top of the mountain understands that time frames don't mean anything. An elite athlete does not know with certainty where they're going to be at in 3 months. All they know is they need to be ready in 3 months. So they're going to be as ready as they can be in 3 months. And they're almost never where they actually want to be in 3 months. But here's the game day, there's the competition, there's the championship. So wherever they're at in 3 months is just where they're at, and they're going to do their best. So again, I'm just really not a fan of going, okay, in 3 months, I'm gonna be sub 200 pounds, I'm gonna be lifting, 600-pound bench press. Okay, just time frames are so arbitrary. And when you start to really get into all the science-based optimizations, you can't help but start making these time frames of, okay, I'm gonna increase the weight this much, I'm going to progressive overload, I'm gonna deload, and by this date at this time, I'm gonna weigh this, I'm gonna live that. You're setting yourself up for failure. It's good to continue your research, to try out new exercises that maybe feel better for you and maybe you are getting better results with. But as somebody who is at a high level at one of the most ancient disciplines in history, gymnastics is thousands of years old, it really comes down to, caveman-like thinking. I push hard, now I eat, now I rest, and I do again. That's kind of how I perceive training plans. I think people forget that the goal is longevity in the game. I've been training for 23 consecutive years. I started training when I was 5, I'm 28 now, I've never stopped. That is the biggest edge of my training plan is I'm 23 years deep. Just the sheer amount of time I've been training outweighs any optimization that any science-based lifter can make. Let's get back to the person at the bottom of the mountain who wants to make it to the top, okay? What can they do to increase the odds that they're going to make it to the top, or at least get higher up the mountain than most people make? There's basically three things. Three things compose an elite training plan, okay? The first and most important one is just learn 2 to 3 really good exercises for each muscle group. And it's actually really easy to do because of all of the information online on YouTube. Calf, quad, hamstrings, abductors, adductors, abs, back, lats, rear delts, side delts, front delts, chest, traps. You just look it up. Look up full body training. And don't stress about putting the perfect exercises on the perfect day, the perfect consistency. That's not really how elite athletes train. But I'll get more into that later later in the video. Okay, so once you've learned 2 to 3 good exercises for each muscle group, the next thing you need to do is learn how to train intensely and safely. Okay, this is one of the hardest parts. What happens a lot is the worst thing you can do is hurt yourself, because when you hurt yourself, that just dramatically increases the odds that you're gonna fall off. You're gonna stop trying to climb this mountain because it hurts. Okay, the best way you can avoid injury is make sure you have good form. There's tons of content on YouTube how to do like every exercise you can think of with good form. Maybe watch 2 or 3 different examples, just make sure they agree with each other, and any like big outlier that like does not agree at all, don't listen to that one probably. So good form will really help you. And also, I am really against trying to lift super heavy weights. Okay, and super heavy is different depending on who you're talking to. I'm not like the biggest guy, so on bench press, anything above 225 on a bench press, that to me, it's just pointless. It's a lot. That's really heavy, and that's where my risk of injury starts to go up. And I know there's some people that would argue that you can lift really heavy safely, but to that, I would argue, why do you need to lift that heavy? There's not really a benefit to it. It's not gonna extend your life. It's not going to dramatically change your physique. It's just not worth lifting super heavy unless your goal is to be a power lifter, okay? So have good form and don't worry about going super heavy. And just don't listen to people who say, bro, you really need to start hitting 315 on the bench. Dude, you could squat, 4 plates. Maybe you could. You don't need to, and it's not even a good idea to. Don't worry about it. So you've learned 2 to 3 good exercises for every major muscle group. You learn how to train intensely and safe. Just to kind of finish the point on that, it doesn't really matter how much weight you do. I say it's good to be like medium heavy. And I know people do like the percentages of max. If that works for you, cool. I kind of go, this is really light, this is medium heavy, this is really heavy. That's how I do it. You really just have to be at medium to medium heavy, and you just cycle through that. In regards to the amount of reps, you basically just want to get to failure. What does this look like? I go in 4-week rotations. Week 1 is really light, week 2 is medium light, week 3 is medium to medium heavy, and week 4 is medium heavy to heavy. And every 4 weeks, I cycle through that and I do a full body workout 5 days a week. It's just the simplest. I don't have to think about it. The more you can simplify, the more you can save your precious brain juice, the better. So you could just do 3 full body workouts, good exercises for each muscle group, and you just gotta hit failure for like 3 sets, and then do some cardio at the end. 10-15 minutes, high intensity cardio. Nothing crazy. So that kind of concludes the second part. The third part is you need to mentally prepare yourself to train forever. This is what really makes or breaks elite athletes. A lot of people think, okay, by this summer, by the beginning of next year, I need to be at this weight. I want to look like this. And they give themselves like really short time periods. Meanwhile, elite athletes, they think next year. They think, okay, in 2 or 3 years from now. They're really thinking ahead. They're training, they're showing up each day with where they want to be years from now. And I think if more people thought in those terms, there would just be better results, because what can happen is you go, okay, I want to be under 200 pounds by January, and you're at 230 pounds and it's October. Okay, 30 pounds in 2-3 months theoretically is possible, but how about you want to maintain being under 200 years from now? Okay, if that's the mentality of eventually I'm going to be under 200 pounds and I'm going to maintain that for the rest of my life for years, you're going to make better decisions and you're going to have more realistic expectations, because now you know it's a lifestyle. Every day you need to eat as if you're going to maintain a certain weight for years to come. And occasionally, splurge, birthdays, holidays, you don't have to like deprive yourself of all that's good. Just your average day, you control what you eat. And then your workouts go, okay, I'm just in this 4-week cycle. I'm on a week 3, it's a medium heavy week. I'm on week 4, it's a heavy week. I'm on week 1, this is basically a rest week, okay? And you just keep doing it. Your risk of injury is really low, especially if you train this way, if you train smart. And if you can stick to this type of training plan, you're gonna start to have the same attitude that I have. And I show up to the gym 5-6 days a week, and I've been doing this for 23 years straight. And I've seen my friends come and go, come and go, come and go. They show up skinny, they leave, they come back fat, they leave, they come back even fatter, they leave, they come back chubby. And it's like, and each time there's like, hey bro, I have this different plan. I'm gonna do the carnivore, I'm gonna do 90 strong, 90 days strong, this. I'm just like, how about you just keep showing up? How about you just have a realistic training plan? How about you just keep showing up and maybe you only have 30, 40 minutes, but you just make the best you can out of that time. You keep doing that. You keep eating right. For the next 5, 10 years, like, you're gonna look better. That's the mistake that I see a lot of people make. They listen to people who are not at the top of the mountain. They listen to people who are just slightly higher than them on the mountain. And again, let me tell you, as someone who's at the top of my particular mountain, it really just takes general knowledge, good exercises, how to not hurt yourself. You do have to work out hard. Failure is basically the golden standard of making sure you're stimulating muscle growth. You need to eat well enough, and you need to have the perspective and expectations that your training plan is going to last 5, 10 plus years. That's how you think like an elite athlete.